Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, Yoshinobu Yamamoto made his debut for the Dodgers in spring training. He looked really good. We're going to talk all about that. We're also going to talk about Yamamoto in general and how he might actually be more important to the 2024 Dodgers than Shohei Ohtani. And finally, we'll dig into Andy Pages, who had a homer and a triple for the Dodgers on Wednesday, and talk about what it would take for him to make the big league roster. That's what's on tap. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. My name is Jeff Steiner. My normal co-host is Vince Semperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. And happy Leap Day to you. It's February 29th, probably the second February 29th in the history of Locked On Dodgers. Actually, I don't know for sure. Maybe the last one was on a weekend, so maybe we didn't even have an episode. Might be the first February 29th that we've ever done an episode on. I don't remember much about 2020, to be honest with you. It was a weird year. I don't know if you noticed that. 2020, a little bit weird. But I did want to mention, in honor of February 29th, there's only been one Dodger player, as far as I can tell, in history who was born on February 29th. That was a pitcher named Ed Appleton, who pitched 2 seasons, 1915 and 1916. Wasn't very good. It's kind of funny. His career ERA was 3.25, which these days would be awesome. Back then, it was an ERA plus of 86, so 14% worse than league average. This was, of course, just before the live ball era started. And maybe the most notable thing about Ed Appleton, besides the fact that he was born on Leap Day, he actually died about a month before he got to celebrate a birthday for the 10th time. He was almost 40 years old when he died. But in 1915, as a rookie, he had an experience against the Cardinals. Miller Huggins was the Cardinals manager and their third base coach. Back then, usually the manager coached third base. And at one point, it was bases loaded, 2 outs, and Cardinals manager / third base coach Miller Huggins got an idea. And so Ed Appleton was on the mound, had the ball, and I guess there had been a foul tip or a foul ball. And Miller Huggins said, "Hey, let me see that ball," pretending that he was worried that the ball had gotten scuffed or something on the foul ball. And Appleton, being a rookie, not really knowing any better, okay, the other manager said, "Let me see the ball." So he just tossed the ball to Miller Huggins. Miller Huggins just stepped out of the way instead of catching it. The ball rolled down the line. The run scored. It's just snuck in a run. The newspaper account is pretty funny. I love reading old-timey newspaper writing. Jack Miller was on third, Hyatt was on second, and Dolan on first in the 7th with 2 out. Miller Huggins was coaching at third. Appleton was all ready to pitch to Snyder when Huggins let out a yell and called to Appleton to throw him the ball so he could see whether it had been cut against the stand by a foul tip. Appleton, with true Southern courtesy, obliged by snapping the ball to Huggins. The latter just naturally sidestepped and let the leather roll to the stands. So that's, unfortunately, Ed Appleton's claim to fame, I guess. But yeah, he played those 2 seasons, was bad, and then he was done with his career and died shortly before he turned 40 years old. Looks like he did pitch for a long time after that in the minor leagues, pitched till like 1926. But anyway, that's our Leap Day knowledge, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He pitched on Wednesday for the Dodgers, his first time pitching in a game for the Dodgers, pitching in a game anywhere in the United States other than the World Baseball Classic. And he looked great. He pitched 2 innings. He struck out Marcus Semien, the first batter he faced, struck him out on a 96-mile-an-hour fastball up in the zone. And then he struck out Nathaniel Lowe and somebody else, 2 left-handed hitters on splitters. Lowe's splitter bounced, I think, in front of the plate, just ridiculous movement. The second or the third strikeout, the second one on the splitter, he at least the ball didn't bounce till almost before it got to the catcher's glove. But both filthy pitches. He also threw the slider and the curveball, so he threw 4 different pitches in his outing. Looked really good. 19 pitches in 2 innings, 16 for strikes. That doesn't mean 16 in the strike zone. He got some chasing, but 16 strikes, only 3 balls, and just like, we talk a lot. Don't get too excited about results in spring training. But as I was telling one of our Locked On Dodgers insiders, texting back and forth today, I think it was Mike Markham. You don't want to get too high or too low about results, but stuff is something you can get excited about. And Yamamoto looking this good this early in spring, that kind of movement, like it was our first chance to see what he might be for the Dodgers this year. And he looked really, really good. And the confidence on the mound. And it's kind of funny. He said afterwards, when he was talking to the media through his interpreter, he said his main emotion was relief. Not so much, I assume, that he was worried he was going to pitch poorly, just getting it out of the way. I think, he said it was relief. And, it is the first of many, many games. He's going to be with the Dodgers for a long time. He's going to pitch a lot of games that are a lot more important than this one. But the first one, there's some excitement and some jitters, I'm sure, with that. And just having it out of the way, I'm sure it is a big relief. He looked outstanding, and the stuff looked really good. And so even if he had gotten hit hard, if the stuff looked like that, I mean, he did give up a hard hit single to Evan, what's his name? Evan Carter. But then he got a double play. Top prospect Wyatt Langford hit into a double play. He hit the ball hard-ish too, but right at Max Muncy at third. By the way, Muncy got hit by a pitch in the first inning. If you hadn't heard, he hasn't had x-rays yet. They're calling it a contusion, saying he's day-to-day, but he hasn't had x-rays yet. I'm always a little bit nervous when somebody gets hit on the hand. Justin Turner and Corey Seager both come to mind. And I get nervous with x-rays because when there's swelling involved, sometimes x-rays miss things. And like 2016, I think, when Andre Ethier fouled the ball off his leg, Dodgers didn't even know that his leg was fractured for a while. I don't remember how long it was. In my mind, it was like close to a month. I don't think it was actually that long, but it just wasn't healing as fast as they expected. And, it's fractured. And that ended up being kind of a career-ending injury. He barely played in 2016 and 2017, and his career was over. So hopefully it's nothing for Muncy, but, we'll have to wait and see. We'll talk more once we have real news on that. But Yamamoto looked great. That first inning, he just got the strikeout of Semien and then the double play. Second inning, he got the 2 strikeouts, and I think it was just a fly out to left to Vargas in left. And all in all, just really, really exciting to see Yamamoto in a Dodger uniform, seeing the stuff. I talked the other day about how excited I was just to see it from the center field camera, to see that movement. And the splitter really is remarkable. And the other pitches, like the fastball doesn't look dominant. Like it looks like a good fastball, but it must have some ride or some late action or something, because Marcus Semien is a very good hitter, and he kind of blew a ball past Marcus Semien. So maybe Semien was just guessing something different, but whatever it was, I mean, the fastball, it plays. And when you have so many different pitches, a fastball does play up like that, because they do have to be ready for one of the off-speed pitches or whatever. And if they guess wrong, they don't have a chance to hit that fastball. So that was really, really exciting for me. I think for all of us as Dodger fans. I'm going to talk more in a minute about Yamamoto and just his importance to the Dodgers, because I really do think, as I think about it, and I hope this doesn't get taken out of context. I'll tell you right now, nothing I'm going to say in the next segment is meant to diminish anything at all about Shohei Ohtani, who I'm really excited about. But I do think, in a way, for the 2024 Dodgers, Yoshinobu Yamamoto might be more important than Ohtani. So I'm going to come back in just a minute. I'm going to talk about that idea. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Look, if you've ever had to buy tickets to a sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, a theater event, anything like that, you know how frustrating it can be trying to find the best prices, trying to figure out what your the view will actually be from your seats, all that stuff. It's crazy. And even when you get your tickets, you always got this nagging concern, like, did I get the best price? Could I have done better somewhere else? Well, I'm telling you, the way to do it is to go to Game Time, because Game Time has the Game Time guarantee. They guarantee that you will get the best price on Game Time, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. These guys are obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. They have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and sometimes even an hour after it starts. So it's the place to find last minute seats. You can find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for big time savings. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. Like I said, 110% of the difference credited if you find a better price in the same section and row. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, I'm back. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. We really appreciate those of you who are doing that. It doesn't have to be every morning, but do your best, Also want to tell you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text-based service where we send you our thoughts on news, rumors, and stuff, action on the field, and you can text back and forth one-on-one conversations. Having a lot of fun with that, so check it out. It's just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial. And also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network, to give you all your fix for sports, whether you want the whole sports scene or focused on Los Angeles. Those two channels will do those things for you. And with that said, let's talk more about Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Yamamoto, obviously, if it wasn't the offseason of Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto would have been the biggest signing of the offseason. The fact that he signed with the Dodgers would be the big story. And because of Ohtani, Yamamoto almost gets a little overlooked, and not necessarily in a bad way. And honestly, like, I wonder if maybe part of the appeal of signing with the Dodgers was that, a little bit less pressure, because instead of being the guy who the big acquisition or whatever, he does get to kind of blend in a little bit. He does seem, it's natural. A guy coming over to the United States for the first time, age 25, not coming over for the first time, but playing in the US for the first time in the big leagues. There's going to be a lot of pressure, and maybe not quite ready to be, front and center, or at least not quite as comfortable. I'm sure he would have done fine in that situation, but maybe it appealed to him that he didn't have to be the man, the big acquisition. And so it's kind of funny that this week he was not quite an afterthought, but definitely the second biggest Dodgers debut of the last 2 days. Ohtani was what everybody wanted to see. And we as Dodger fans were all really excited for Yamamoto too. And he didn't disappoint at all. But as I've been thinking about it, and this isn't meant to be a hot take, sometimes I think I would be a better podcaster if I liked hot takes more. I don't really say things that I don't believe. Sometimes if we need, there's a pros and cons thing, like Vince and I'll decide, okay, well, you take the pro side, I'll take the con side. If it's something that I can see arguments both ways, and I'll try to make the argument more on one side than the other. But I don't think in the 5-year history of this podcast, I don't think I've ever said anything I don't actually believe, just for the sake of being a hot take. And I'm not going to do that now. And so I always worry that things will get taken out of context, that somebody will clip out, I know this has happened. People clip out just a short little thing, and they say, oh, look at what this idiot said. So I'll just acknowledge up front, I'm an idiot, of course. But I hope people will take this in good faith, what I'm about to say. I think Yoshinobu Yamamoto is more important to the 2024 Dodgers than Shohei Ohtani. And I'll tell you why. It's because where they're coming from, what the 2023 Dodgers had, I think Yamamoto is more of an upgrade for the Dodgers, because last year the Dodgers had JD Martinez at DH. Martinez wasn't as good as Shohei Ohtani, but Martinez was a legit all-star. He had a very, very good season at DH for the Dodgers. And we said it last year at the trade deadline, and this is actually one of the things that got taken out of context a little bit. I said the reason that the Dodgers were unlikely to trade for Ohtani at the trade deadline last year was because he was less of an upgrade for the Dodgers than for a team that actually needed a DH. The Dodgers had JD Martinez. Of course, Ohtani would have been an upgrade, but less of an upgrade. And so that same concept, over the 2023 Dodgers, Ohtani is an upgrade, but not a massive one. Whereas Yamamoto coming in, you look at some of the guys who got starts for the Dodgers last year, the starting rotation, the injuries, everything the Dodgers had last year, Yamamoto is a huge upgrade there. And then you have the fact that Ohtani is only hitting this year. Overall, like once Ohtani's pitching and hitting, he's the most impactful player in baseball when he's healthy and he's doing both well. But in 2024, Ohtani's just hitting, which he's going to do at a roughly MVP level. I've said before, I believe Ohtani would have won the MVP last year in the American League, even if he hadn't thrown a single pitch. He was that good at hitting. And I'm hoping for something roughly similar this year. And again, Ohtani is extremely important to the Dodgers, and I'm very happy he's on the team. But Yamamoto, the improvement to the rotation, the way he solidifies that rotation, plus you have Buehler coming back, you've got, at the addition of Tyler Glasnow and James Paxton and, the young guys trying to work their way in, eventually Clayton Kershaw coming back, having a guy like Yamamoto, all those other guys I just mentioned, there's either, and obviously Bobby Miller, there's either youth, Miller and Emmett Sheehan and Gavin Stone, there's youth concerns. There's maybe innings limits because of their youth and inexperience. And then there's the other side of Walker Buehler and Tyler Glasnow and James Paxton and Clayton Kershaw with injury concerns or health, or innings limits because of health things. And so Yamamoto, he's young, he's 25, he's technically a rookie. He's probably going to win the Rookie of the Year award if it lives up even close to what we're expecting from him. And it's kind of funny. I'm talking to Keith Law pretty soon about his prospect list, be talking to him about all the Dodgers on the list. And he mentioned in his introduction, Yamamoto's not a prospect because the MPB in Japan is basically a major league, but it's not the major leagues. And so Yamamoto is technically a rookie, and he's only 25. So he's young. I think he's younger than, some of those guys, Gavin Stone, maybe Bobby Miller, so he's younger than some of these guys, but he's more experienced and he is that steadying force. He's going to be an anchor in that rotation. He's going to start either the first or second game of the season. Like he is legitimately coming in and being basically the ace and letting Bobby Miller grow into his role, letting Walker Buehler take his time coming back into his role, letting Tyler Glasnow kind of ease his way into being a healthy Dodger star. All these things, Yamamoto solidifies that rotation. And because of that, I do think Yamamoto is maybe the most important Dodger this year. Dodgers are going to hit, but Yamamoto steadies that rotation in a way that I don't know that. I think Bobby Miller could, if he was forced into that role, I think he could do it. Tyler Glasnow, if he stays healthy, he could do it. But having Yamamoto, I feel like that is a little bit more of a sure thing than the Dodgers would have had if they hadn't signed him. And so for 2024, I think he might be the most important player on the team. Doesn't mean he's going to be the best player, not going to have the highest WAR, but that level of importance, that, that it factor, and that giving them something that they can't get somewhere else. Because the fact is, Ohtani, Freeman, and Betts are all going to hit really well. They're probably going to steal MVP votes from each other. And so probably somebody not on the Dodgers is going to win MVP because Dodgers are going to have too many good hitters. But the fact is, if one of those guys gets hurt, they still have the other guys. And plus that, then you get into Max Muncy and Will Smith and Teoscar Hernandez and the rest of the lineup. It's a very good lineup. And not that Yamamoto is the only good pitcher, but he gives them something that that nobody else kind of nothing's irreplaceable in baseball, but less replaceable than anybody else on the team, if that makes sense. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, again, didn't mean that as a hot take, and definitely don't mean it as a knock on Shohei Ohtani at all. I do think he is going to be roughly an MVP caliber hitter this year, and it's going to be huge for the Dodgers offense. I think it's going to be the best Dodgers offense we've ever seen, maybe. And so obviously, if anybody takes this out of context, anybody watching in good faith knows what I'm saying. But I'd love to hear it. Doesn't mean you have to agree with me. I say it every single episode. You don't have to agree. And if you disagree, I'd love to hear it, hopefully respectfully. But let me know what you think. Let me know why you think I'm wrong or why you think I'm right. You can, if you're watching on YouTube, you could hit it up in the YouTube comment section. If you're listening, you could hit me up in all the other ways. I'll tell you all the contact info at the end. If you're an insider, you can text it to us, all sorts of fun stuff there. With that said, speaking of YouTube comments, there's some fun stuff in there and not necessarily, there's a lot of good comments from actual Dodger fans. We got a comment saying, is this Locked On Dodgers or Locked On Donuts? Like, if you're going into the comments to make a fat joke, at least make it funny. Like, and by funny, I mean better than I've made myself about myself on this show. Like, donuts? Seriously? Like, I wish I had donuts, but it's not Locked On Donuts. That's what I'm talking about, the Dodgers, not about donuts. But so if you're gonna make fat jokes, at least make them creative. And especially if you disagree, tell me why. Like, I like to engage in that stuff, but don't say, oh, you're a stupid idiot, because it's something we all know and it doesn't add to the conversation. So I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about Andy Pages, who had a big day on Wednesday, and we'll talk about whether or not there's a path for him to make the big league roster. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. NBA season is going strong right now, and if you have strong feelings on something going on in the NBA, you're pretty sure you know how many points Luka Doncic is going to score in a game, or how many points LeBron's going to score in a game, or who's going to win, the next Laker game. Whatever it is you feel strongly about, place a $5 bet on it. And if you're right, you get $150 in bonus bets. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Hey, I'm back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. If you're not an everydayer, please become one. It's a lot of fun talking Dodgers with you. We hope you enjoy listening to it or watching it. You can also become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. And you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. And with that said, we're going to talk about Andy Pages. He had a big 2-run homer in Wednesday's game. The Dodgers actually did lose a game for the first time this spring, but Pages had a big 2-run homer. Later, he had a triple, was almost another home run, bounced off the wall, and he had a stand-up triple. Looked really good and made a impressive play in right field on defense too, saved a run. So just a very good game for Andy Pages. He's now 4 for 10 this spring. He does have 4 strikeouts, but only 1 strikeout in his last 5 at-bats, and obviously 10 at-bats, 5 at-bats, both tiny sample sizes. We don't really know what his strikeout rate will look like, but he's been impressive. And I don't know if you remember much about Pages, if you every day, or maybe you remember us talking about him in the past. Last year, about a year ago, he had dropped down and in some cases off a lot of prospect lists because he was his mobility was getting worse. And like one prospect list, I think it was Baseball Prospectus last year, maybe, don't quote me on that. But one of them said, in previous years, he was a center fielder and that they said, well, he'll probably have to move to right field, but he's got the arm for it. That was kind of always the talk. Last year, one of them said that Pages, there are now questions about whether he can even stick in right field So he might be a first baseman DH type player. And obviously the Dodgers don't have room for a first baseman or a DH. But he worked really, really hard before last season, got himself into much better condition, and has maintained that. He is in really, really good shape. He's added mobility, and now there seems to be no question that he can stick in right field. And with Mookie Betts being a second baseman now, like a year ago right now, if you had asked me, and even if you didn't ask me, I probably said it out loud on this podcast a few times, I didn't see a place for Andy Pages in the Dodgers' future because he was right field, first base, DH, and the Dodgers didn't have a spot for those guys at those positions. Now he's legitimately a right fielder who can maybe even play some center in a pinch. And the Dodgers' superstar right fielder is now a superstar second baseman. So there actually could be a possibility. Now, the problem is there's not currently an opening. And as I've talked about a few times recently, I don't think the Dodgers are going to put Pages on the big league roster to be a platoon player because he bats right-handed, which means if he's in a platoon, he's facing left-handed pitching, which means he's getting 1 or 2 starts a week. Plus, an occasional pinch hitting, opportunity late in a game. I don't think that would be the best thing for his development. So I don't think they're going to do that. So with that caveat, we're looking at, okay, well, what would he need to do and what else would need to happen for him to actually earn enough playing time that it's worth having him in the big leagues? And when you look at the Dodgers roster right now, they do have 4 guys besides Pages who are listed as outfielders on their roster. And it's the 4 big league outfielders: Mookie Betts, Teoscar Hernandez, Jason Hayward, and James Outman. They still have Mookie Betts as an outfielder. Silly me. They have 3 guys besides Pages because Betts is an infielder now. But they have Kike listed as an infielder on here, and he will be playing some outfield, plus Chris Taylor. They're both listed as infielders. So realistically, the outfielders they have Outman, Hayward, Teoscar, Kike, and CT3. That's their 5 outfielders besides Pages. I doubt that if everybody's healthy, Kike and CT3 aren't going to lose a spot. Outman's not going to lose a spot. Teoscar's definitely not going to lose a spot. They're going to be on the roster. Jason Hayward, I think, is going to be on the roster, but I wonder if the best path to playing time for Pages would be in Hayward's spot, because Hayward, we haven't seen him do much yet this spring. He's played and he hasn't looked great, but he's gotten more at bats against left-handed pitching this spring, because in the spring, you're not going to pinch hit for a guy just because there's a lefty on the mound. And so you get those opportunities. But Hayward right now, he is 1 for 5 this spring. And that's, tiny sample size. But last year, people were a little bit surprised at Hayward's success. And the Dodgers, they re-signed him. Everybody's happy. Everybody is thrilled that Jason Hayward is back with the Dodgers, because he had a good season offensively, defensively, and in the dugout in the clubhouse. He is a good influence. But I wonder if he struggles this spring. And again, 5 at-bats isn't enough to say whether or not he's going to struggle. But if he continues to struggle in a larger sample size, I could see an instance where they do want to platoon Hayward with Pages and not have it be strictly based on handedness. And so have it be more of a Pages gets 60% of the starts, and Hayward, when he does start, it'll be against right-handed pitching, but he won't start every game against right-handed pitching. Something like that. Now, in order for that to happen, though, that would still mean that a roster spot would have to open up, because right now the roster is full. If you're looking at 13 position players, you've got Ohtani, Smith, Barnes, or whoever the backup catcher is, Freeman, Kike, Lux, Muncy, Rojas, Taylor, Betts, Hernandez, Hayward, and Outman. Like, that's your 13. One of those guys I just mentioned would have to drop off the roster. Now, that could happen with injury. Like, we're looking at, I talked earlier about Max Muncy getting hit on the hand. If Max Muncy's hand injury is worse than we hope it is, if he misses some time because of that, Well, because of all the different positional flexibility, you could just slot in Kike Hernandez as the starting third baseman. And then that opens up a roster spot and an outfield spot for Andy Pages. Obviously we hope Muncy isn't out. A different guy could get hurt. Maybe, we're not wishing injury on anybody, but if there is going to be an injury, obviously it would be better if it was more of a role player type. If Miguel Rojas or, tweak the hammy, needed some time off, boom, let's get Andy Pages in the majors and let him play 60% of the time. I do wonder if he will get to play in Korea, because it's still no more than 13 pitchers on the roster limit, but the Dodgers might not need all 13 pitchers because they only need 2 starting pitchers, which means that opens up 3 extra spots. And I'm sure they'll want to bring an extra reliever or 2 because you won't be expecting the starters to go as deep in the games, all of those things. I don't know that they'll need 3 extra relievers. So maybe they will go with 14 and 12, 14 off position players, which would open up a spot for either Miguel Vargas or Andy Pages. I'd love to see Pages get that chance, especially if he keeps hitting like this. And I said, a couple weeks ago, really it comes down to Pages or Vargas forcing the issue by having a great spring. That's what Pages needs to do. He's on a good track right now, playing good defense, hitting the ball well. He needs to continue to do that. The opportunities will come. There will be injuries throughout the year. And if he puts himself in a position to, when somebody's hurt, boom, Pages is the guy we're calling up. It could be a big year for him, and a year where he ends up forcing the issue, kind of like Cody Bellinger did in 2017. Dodgers didn't plan on calling Cody Bellinger up. They called him up because Jock Peterson got hurt, and he came up and played left field and hit well enough that when Jock came back, they said, "Hey, Adrian Gonzalez, how about you go on the injured list now?" And Bellinger became the first baseman, and he just forced his way onto the roster. Pages could do the same thing. It'll be interesting to see. It's going to be his rookie year, and hopefully it'll be a big year for him wherever he's playing, but hopefully he'll get some opportunities in the big leagues, because I am more excited about Andy Pages than I was a year ago, and excited to see what he can do in the big leagues. So anyway, that's my thoughts on everything for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree. Always fun interacting with you. So YouTube comment section or any other way. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, especially our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, please become one by watching and listening every weekday morning. Be sure to become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers, just a few bucks a month, free 14-day trial, and you can text back and forth with us. It's a lot of fun. You can also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open there. You can email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.